This is the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak podcast, a show that brings you marketing stories, tips, hints, and much more. A treat for those who want to succeed in business or marketers who just want to learn. Hello, Alex.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so sorry I was a bit late. I'm just got my head stuck in this document I have to submit on the carbon literacy project.
Carbon literacy. I
Carbon
mean,
literacy.
you can spell carbon, can't you?
Yeah,
What's that about?
well, I'm passionate about sustainability. We both went on an mission to save the oceans. That was kind of our thing, is we're going to help remove plastic from the ocean, but it's so much bigger than that. So I went and I did this course on carbon literacy to try and reduce the business CO2 levels. But for the accreditation, I have to submit and commit to some actions that as a business we're going to take to actually make a difference. And the difficulty is they have to be impactful. So you can't say, I'm going to change all my lamps to LED, or I'm going to stop buying notebooks, which actually, if they saw the number of notebooks in my office, that may
It
be a
would be
good
quite
one for
yeah.
me. It's got to be really, really impactful, which is, that's where my head's buzzing around what's impactful.
Like possibly making big changes to your life that you might not particularly want to do.
Yeah, I guess so. But this is where your values come into play. Like, how serious are you about sustainability? How seriously do you want to take this? Because you can go, I will not work with any single supplier who is not taking sustainability seriously, right? And they have to show me that. And if they can't, then I'm going to say no, thank you. But then as a business, especially a small business, like, where does that leave you? Do you have options? Are you going to be paying more for everything else? Because unfortunately, there's a trend now where people with a sustainability tag are just upping their prices, right?
Yeah,
It seems to be more expensive to be good for the planet. Um, but yeah, so it's thinking about where we stand as a business and how we want to make an impact. It's fascinating, really fascinating.
yeah, it is. And I mean, it's a good point what you're saying about um, kind of taking it seriously in the business because I mean I think we touched on greenwashing last in our last episode a little bit. I think we did, or maybe that's just another conversation I had with you. I can't remember. Um, but there are a lot of businesses that talk about it but don't really do anything. Oh yeah, because we talked about the Virgin advert, didn't we?
Yeah, and the tree and the planted tree schemes.
Yeah, and then businesses are not really filling are not really following through on it, and it just causes trust issues. But it isn't just the initiative that they're doing, right? So let's say for every client we get, we plant a tree. It kind of goes deeper than that into every aspect of your business, and um, I mean, a lot of businesses have they like to fly, for example, to other parts of the world or the country to
Yeah,
conduct business. But is it necessary?
or just nice.
Or just nice? Yeah. I mean, you
Well,
have the
my biggest, when I measured my carbon footprint, obviously my biggest usage is my flights to South Africa. It's by far my biggest carbon problem, but I like it. It's really
yeah.
hard to say, well, I'm never going to fly to South Africa again.
You
I
have to
like,
go on a motorbike.
or a boat. A boat works. Boats are lower. So it's really difficult. And then, I mean, you mentioned avocados in the UK. They're obviously flown here, right? I love avocados. Like, am I going to say, all right, I'm never going to eat an avocado again? Oh,
Yeah.
so this is the problem, right? Is you need to make hard decisions if you're serious about it. It's not,
This is why I feel people kind of wash their hands with climate change actions because they'd rather someone else make the decision for them, if you know what I mean. Like,
Rather, there's
I
a law banning avocados, then there's me choosing not to eat
no,
avocados.
exactly. It's much easier to accept that there's no avocado. There's much easier to not get an avocado because there are no avocados because of the law
Yeah.
than you saying being in front of the avocado aisle in the supermarket and saying, no, I'm gonna take the apple
Apple.
instead it was grown in Sussex.
Or I saw they're now doing guacamole made with peas so that you don't have to use avocado. I can't think of anything more sad in my life.
That's just not the same. That is not the same.
Yeah, I do think that's why people struggle with it because it's a like for me, not flying to South Africa is hectic, right? Like it's hectic. It's business for me, it's pleasure for me, it's personal because there's family. Like it's got so much. It's my holiday for my kids. It's got so much in there. I would have to find replacements for all of that, right? So, like,
Yeah,
how do I do all of that? Because that's what that one trip does for me. But it's killing the planet. So what do I do?
yeah, and it's a really difficult one, and I think all of these crossover between making those decisions in your business cross over to your personal life as well, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
talk about the changes in your business and doing them for a marketing point of view for your business, but ultimately it's affecting you personally. And I feel like people just don't want to do it. And it's really, really difficult. Um, with the flights, that what is the biggest carbon emission industry that emits the most carbon? What is it? Do you know after your carbon literacy coursework?
I should
It's
know, right?
is it transportation or is it
Transportation was up there. I made
manufacturing?
notes. Hmm.
I tell you what will help us is a good Google search using Google's
Or ask
uh,
ChatGPT, right?
what is the biggest carbon emitter? Well, China. It just says China.
It would be China, right?
Yeah, it's fossil fuels, I guess. What is the largest component? Fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just the burning and the create the um, gathering of it.
Yeah.
But in terms of your business, there are lots of things. There are. So I think if you're doing an audit of your business, of how you can reduce your CO2 emissions within your business, and you're looking at, like you're talking about flights or your travel or what you're using in the office or your suppliers, are they also environmentally conscious?
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned before about something like Microsoft. If you're using Microsoft or we all use Google, there are actually there are alternatives to those that are a lot more environmentally conscious. For example, Google, there are other search engines, and search engines use a lot of energy and carbon because they've got massive storage units in some crazy part of the world that are burning a ridiculous amount of or using a ridiculous amount of energy. There are other alternatives. For example, I think it's called Escocia, which is a search engine that plants trees for every 10 searches you do or something like that. And the profits go into planting trees rather than going into pockets, apparently. That's what I'd say. But I think there are other alternatives where we think, oh, I couldn't possibly we kind of get stuck thinking that Google is the only option or Microsoft is the only option, but there are other things that I think businesses can do or other spaces that they can use to as alternatives that may not be perfect, but could be better.
Yes. I guess I'm the skeptic because better based on what? If you run, if Google AdWords are your marketing tool of choice, your clients are all on using Google. It's all very well to say, okay, when I do a search, I'm going to use something else. But actually, if my clients are not there and they don't have an as powerful AdWords option, and then I have no business. So it's really hard, I think, Alex.
Well,
It's not as
this
it's
is
not as
exactly
black and white as, oh look, here's an alternative to Google. Let's all move, right? It's not that easy.
well, exactly. This is you're making you're highlighting the exact problem with the challenges around sustainability. There's your personal side, which is no, but I like avocados, and then there's a business side saying, well, no, this is way more profitable for us.
Yeah, it's really, well, if it was easy, we wouldn't have this problem, right? Would be sorted and everything would be wonderful, and everyone would be happy. But it's hard. It's really hard.
But do you know anything? I know that the government passed a law, didn't they, a year or two ago about businesses becoming net zero, like large businesses, banks, things like that. Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think there's going to be fudging of the numbers?
Um, I mean, it's a pity we have to resort to regulation, but I think especially the bigger businesses, it's definitely becoming more transparent about what they're putting in their reports. They can get audited every time. There's big fines that are coming. So I think it has to be real. It's going to get to a place where you're going to be really stupid if you fudge it because
Yeah, that's true.
the
But
the
what do you mean it's
impact
a
will
pity
be.
it's come to regulations?
Sorry.
What do you mean it's a pity that it's come to having to use regulations?
I don't know. I guess I believe in the nice guy concept. We should be doing it because it's the right thing to do, not because the law tells us to do it, right? Like in my beautiful utopia world where everyone is doing the right thing for the planet and caring about everyone else and nobody is trying to rip anyone else off or anything. We do things for the right reason, not because
And
someone
I have to
told us
give
to
you
do
a virtual slap because wake up.
Oh,
This
I
is it.
know. I like my utopia. I'm going to hold on to it. It's beautiful. It's lovely on my side of the fence, Alex. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I think regulations are, I don't know, regulations are good. I feel I'm a fan of regulations. I think they're quite important to keep everybody in line, especially, by the way, living in a country that doesn't really have any regulations. You really
Like,
appreciate the regulations that you do have in other countries.
but I mean, let's talk avocados, right? Here's the example. So let's say there was a law banning avocados from the UK because they have to be flown here. So unless they're grown here, we're not going to fly any avocados in. Okay, that's the law. You know what? The underground avocado movement would flourish. It would flourish. There's going to be some guy that's going to ship some avocados secretly in a locker somewhere on a ship and start selling it underground. It'll be so. It's not really solving the problem, is it?
Well, the other thing on that, which you just reminded me of, is if we stop bringing in avocados, the state stops bringing in avocados, then what's going to happen to the communities that live and thrive off
Growing
growing
avocados.
avocados? For example, Colombia, where I live, there would be millions of people that would be out of work. So then there's like, so you have the ethical side of sustainability, like, oh, should you be eating avocados from across the world? You say, well, this has been happening for years and years and years now, and communities and civilizations are built on these things. what's the ethical
So
uh
the same was
decision?
said of slavery.
Huh?
The same was said of slavery. It's been happening for years and years and years. These communities built on this. All these ship owners that bring the slaves across, they'll be out of jobs.
No, but I
It
mean,
doesn't make it right.
I'm talking from like a human rights point of view. Slavery was not right from a human rights point of view, but people
Well,
who are
for the guy whose job it was to pick up the slaves and bring them here, he lost his job.
yeah, but he was involved in slavery. But if someone's growing avocados and then they suddenly lose their job, their livelihood, and which would be a lot of people around the world, and then what happens to them? What solution do we are we then obligated to give them a replacement?
Well, it's interesting. I talk to my kids about this a lot. When I was growing up, there were all these adverts about cigarettes, right? Cigarettes were good for you. They encouraged pregnant women to smoke cigarettes. Doctors said, Camel was the best cigarette to smoke. I mean, there was all these ads talking about how good cigarettes were for you.
Yeah.
And then someone woke up and went, oh my goodness, this is actually bad for you. It's causing cancer. Now, what there was businesses built on the cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
There were farmers, there was businesses built, the packers, the guys who made those stupid little boxes that they come in with a little foil wrapper, and like huge businesses built on cigarettes that all of a sudden we changed our minds. Sorry, cigarettes are not good for you anymore. you know.
So for the
Um,
greater good, some people lose out.
and so is shipping avocados not part of that greater good? That's my question to you. So I understand, but then the question is, who decides that? Who is the decision maker who is
Mm.
going to decide which part? Is it shipping avocados? Is it overseas flights? Is it who is, when you get to regulations, now you get to who is that deciding body that is going to decide that one person's livelihood is less important than the greater good. I don't know. Anyway, we're way off marketing. This is not a marketing topic, but it is something, whatever our business is, for us to think about, right? Because there's impact coming. We had the same conversation with AI. There's an impact coming, or the impact is here. And how are we preparing our businesses, either for the consumer's reaction, and it to be simple stuff like if you're sending out goods. In fact, Amazon, if you're listening, I'm pointing at you. Why do you send one small little thing in a giant cardboard box? Just think about the impact to the planet, Amazon. But although someone pointed out that their name is Amazon, so maybe they own a whole lot of trees, and so actually they're in the cardboard box business,
Yeah.
and they're making a lot of money off cardboard boxes. Different
Mm.
thought. But it's to
Conspiracy.
think about, how are you packaging? Are you sending out lots of plastics? And just to be aware of those changes that your consumers may be insisting on at some point. You may have regulations coming that insist on that are insisting on that. So being proactive about those choices and thoughts, because if you've thought about it and you've planned for it, it's much easier than if a law comes and you suddenly have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
think of
already
think
have
of
an
COVID.
alternative up your sleeve.
Exactly. I mean, think even of COVID, how hard it was for businesses to transition online. Some businesses even failed. They couldn't do it, right? Some businesses did it really well. But it's because there was no choice. Whereas the businesses that had been online for a long time, had been thinking about it, had created the infrastructure, it was much easier to shift and to move than those who had never even considered the possibility and had to figure it out overnight. So it's the
Mm.
same with sustainability, I think. Being aware, keeping yourself informed, staying in touch with your clients. What do they want? What is their motivations? What's the noise? What are they saying in the Facebook groups?
And be honest about what you're doing as well. especially if you're talking about it publicly.
Yeah, definitely be honest.
Yeah. And then like you're saying, so if you're, for example, we worked in a business where we were flying quite a lot
Yeah.
before. We're flying like every 2, 3 weeks. Um, the question is like, was it really, 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 really necessary? Or could we cut those down? Could we have done online meetings instead? Or could we had other initiatives? I think there's lots of businesses that are in that same situation. I think, you can't really beat being in person sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes it's essential, but there is, I think, a happy medium that you can make at least. And if you were flying 4 times a month, flying 2 times a month is way better than flying 4 times a month.
And it makes a big impact if you actually look at the actual impact of your carbon footprint. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Not just not and your costs as well. It's expensive to
Absolutely.
travel.
And then other things. So I think I shared this already. We installed solar panels on our roof, and I work from
Yeah,
home. Did I
I
not
did.
tell you?
No.
Oh, yes, we did. But it's fascinating because now we've got a little app on my phone, and I can see. Oh, it's fine. We're generating enough power from the sun that's running our entire house. We're not taking anything from the grid, or the way we've done things in our house has changed. Like we don't run the washing machine at night anymore. The washing machine only gets run in the daytime because
Yeah.
then the sun is running it, right?
Wait,
I'm not.
what kind of crazy person runs a washing machine at night anyway?
It was me. Why? Why is that crazy?
Because you should be sleeping.
Well, that's why it's running while you're sleeping.
Yeah, it makes noise and then it stops and then the wet clothes stay in the washing machine.
I don't know. It's like white noise. It's wonderful. It rocks me to sleep. But anyway, we don't do that anymore. Now everything happens in the daytime, and it's so even just awareness, simple things like that, like an app on my phone now that makes us aware, which means we're talking about it as a family, and we're going, it's 8 o'clock at night, like, why is our power so high? Someone is making popcorn in the microwave. No, stop making popcorn in the microwave at
I
8.
think that's pretty cool. So how much of your electricity is, or your power, your energy in your house is powered by the solar panels?
Well, so far, because it's summer, we're at almost 90% self-generated,
That's
which
lovely.
is, I know, right? I mean, I hate to think of winter. That's going to be fun to see the change. But summer, we've been great, and it's been really fascinating watching. And yeah, we've changed our behaviors to match sort of don't don't do it this way, do it that way, etc. It's been interesting.
I think that's really cool. That's
Yeah,
really
I'm liking it. I know it's just more stuff on my phone, more apps to watch. but
more energy being used by your phone.
but being aware, I didn't even think about that. I'd never even thought about the time of day we run stuff, right? I mean, I suppose it didn't matter before, unless there's some energy providers that have nighttime tariffs and things like that, right? Which are cheaper
Yeah,
at night, etc. But just being aware and changing your behaviors is awesome.
yeah, that is true. I think um, you've now got a replacement of you, how do I explain this? Like having the notification and seeing it really helps you. Like
Yes.
it keeps you motivated. So like maybe there's ways that we can, I don't know, find a motivator in what we're doing.
Yeah.
Somehow, you know what I mean? Like so if we cut down something in your business, replace it with something else. Let's just use the example of the web browser, going from Google to a more sustainable one. If the more sustainable one is saying like once you've done a few searches, go like a notification, bing, you just planted a tree.
Yeah.
Like those kind of motivators that keep you going and take your mind off maybe the parts that you're missing from the
No, exactly. Just
previous supplier, for example.
overcoming some of the loss, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Because
Yeah,
there will be loss.
yeah.
And
So
then
that,
I think even as businesses, which coffee shops are there that offer, that you can bring your own refill thing in so you don't have the takeaway cups anymore? All that kind of stuff is lovely. But how do you remind someone to bring it? Like how often, even the plastic bag thing. Okay, I now keep plastic bags in my boot of my car and everywhere just so that I don't forget. But still, I'll run into the shop and go, do I run back to my car? I don't want to run back to my car.
yeah,
So what can, is there ways in our processes we must think about how do we reward our customers for doing the right thing, and but also help them. You got to help someone make it easier. Is it a reminder when they step out of the car that you get an instant message going, "Are you going shopping? Have you grabbed your bag, Erica?"
yeah,
Right? Like, surely with all the tracking and whatever that's available nowadays, you can do that. It's like just literally every time I step out of my car, just say, if you're going shopping, remember your bag. Like, just
yeah,
that would help
yeah,
me a lot. I mean, I may get annoyed after a
exactly.
while, but
Yeah, and even for businesses that really are serious about being more environmentally conscious, if they're changing one of their processes that affects their customers or a piece of technology that affects their customers, exactly what you were just saying, help them.
help them.
Don't let them just feel a loss. Let them see the benefit of what you're doing. Make sure that you're still taking them down the path of least resistance
Yeah,
and you're not causing any additional problems. So you got to think about how that is affecting your customer, every decision that you're making as well. It might, because they might not just buy into, oh, it's environmentally friendly. Okay, that's great. It's environmentally friendly, but it adds an hour onto my day, and I don't like that.
exactly.
But if you giving them help support that helps them to get over that change, then that's a good way of kind of keeping both sides happy whilst being environmentally friendly.
No, absolutely. And if you're a business that's implementing stuff for your employees, also think further. So, for example, if you're going to do cycle to work schemes, which sounds lovely, right? You can cycle to work. Please provide a shower so that people,
Yeah,
because no one's gonna want to come to work all sweaty, and
yeah.
it's inconvenient.
And
Have
somewhere to
some
look like.
have somewhere to where they can park their bicycles, right? Like, you don't want to have, you're not going to come in and you're going to search for an hour to find somewhere to park your bicycle.
Yeah, I
Have a
was somewhere
locker.
yeah, because I was somewhere where we cycled in, but we had to carry it up the stairs, and the stairs was like 4 flights. It's like if
Yeah,
you cycled 45 minutes, honestly sweating a lot and I'm tired already. I don't want to carry it up 4 flights of stairs. It's much easier just getting on the train.
exactly, right. So it's to think through the entire journey and say, well, how do we make this easy so that people will do it? Because it's all very well saying, oh, look at us, we're a wonderful employer, we have a cycle to work scheme, but no one's going to use it because there's no showers, there's nowhere to park your bicycle, there's no locker to stick your helmet or whatever in. So, it's going to stand on your desk and look messy. And so, if you're a lady, you're going to want somewhere to put your high heel shoes because you want to change when you come back. Like, so who's going to do it, right? So then,
Yeah.
but you on your website, you're going to say, wonderful employer, look at us, we've got a cycle to work scheme. It's meaningless.
Yeah.
And then, to assume that everyone can ride a bicycle, I think is also a mistake. I
You're right.
can't ride a bicycle. So I may want to, but, maybe you need to think of adult training sessions on,
Cycle push.
helping me ride a bicycle because I don't know how. So I would need a little bit of support.
Yeah. Yeah. Just think about your customer. And your customer is also your employees and the ones who buy your product. Keep them in mind with
Absolutely.
every change that you make. Because changes can we make changes all the time, but something we don't think about the effects it has, and often there are effects that you haven't thought of. Maybe like your example of the shower might not be that obvious to somebody that
Yeah,
now we need to put a shower in.
absolutely. And even so, the other impact I was thinking about is events. How often do you go to these events? And I mean, I love freebies, right? So I love going to these events and getting all the freebies. But a lot of people are doing lots and lots of freebies that end up in landfill. So just
Mm.
thinking through that, right? Is the quality, is it made of cheap plastic? Is it, a stress ball that everyone throws in the bin? Is it, what it is? And make sure that it's going to have use. But then also, not only the item, think through the packaging of it. What's the use if you had a wonderful, you get these pencils now that you can plant in the ground when you're finished with it and it becomes a tree or flower, or whatever. But it comes in plastic wrap. Like, what a
Yeah.
waste. What a waste.
Yeah.
And where's it coming from? Sorry, if it's coming from China, it has to be flown here. It's, perhaps you'll pay a little bit more for something local, but your carbon footprint is going to be far less. So there's so many touch points in our business. I think that people you just need to take a step back, take some time out, work with your teams and think through. And sometimes getting an outside opinion is worth it because we're also ingrained in our business. So just asking someone for an hour chat, come and have a quick look at my business and give me a view as to where you can see easy wins to
And
help
the
reduce that.
and the carbon literacy course you've been doing, would you recommend it to any business owners? Does it make you think about things that you haven't necessarily realized or thought about before?
Oh, definitely. But I'm a sponge for knowledge, as you know. I love learning new stuff. It's like I have to be I and I like knowing everything. I don't like knowing a little bit. So, you know, um, if definitely if you want knowledge, if you want to really understand what you're doing, if you want to understand how to make a real difference, yeah, find a course. There's lots of options available now. Um, make sure it's accredited, obviously, and done by the right people, etc. But increasing your knowledge can never hurt. Can never hurt unless you become overwhelmed. So to be
Yeah.
careful of that.
It starts causing anxiety. I don't know, sometimes living in ignorance is bliss.
It's bliss. It's bliss. But like South Africa with its load shedding, you think, oh, that must be really good for the environment now, right? Like the electricity's off for 4 or 5 hours a day. That must be awesome. To
Well,
know.
that might be because of corruption, which is the money funneling into people's pockets who are then using it to fly around the world.
Exactly. So then it's not good at all. Awesome. Well, key
All right.
takeaways, Alex.
Um, yeah, mine would be if you're making a change, think about how it affects your employees and your customers, and help them with that transition. Don't just kind of leave them in the lurch and wondering why you've made that change or how it really that you okay, it affects it helps the environment, but it's not helping me. It was making my life a little bit harder. But
Yeah.
help them on that journey in learning and understanding and give them support or an alternative. That would be my takeaway.
Yeah. And mine would be, let's be aware. All of these things are impacting our consumers, and impacting our consumers will eventually impact our business, whether it's through legislation or through customer behavior. So being aware and keeping our eyes open and actually being proactive about some things rather than being forced to do it feels like it can be a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
So, having blinkers and saying, oh, this will never affect me, I think maybe short sighted. So, yeah, just keep your eyes open. You don't have to change everything. I'm definitely not canceling all my South Africa flights with immediate effect. But I can, now that I'm aware, maybe I don't need to go 4 times a year. I can rethink it and make sure that my trips are, maybe I go for a month instead of lots of short ones, because that's a whole reduction in flight. So there's ways we can adapt. We don't have to, we don't have to all start wearing sackcloth and live in huts. We can still keep our businesses running, but make proactive steps, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like it.
Awesome. Well, have a good week, Alex.
You too. And
we'll talk again. Bye.
Bye-bye. That wraps up this episode of Giraffes Don't Eat Steak. Thanks for joining us. I hope you found value in our discussion and got some new ideas to apply to your own business. Tune in next week for another round of marketing insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate you listening. Catch you next time on Giraffes Don't Eat Steak.